Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coaching Program. My name is Jay Clifton Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance to those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one tool I use to complete my mission. How it works: in 10 minutes time, the podcast will give you a lesson in 10 minutes time that you can use right away, right now, immediately for your personal and professional development life. You can use it to upgrade something you're doing right here, right now. And if it seems like the information you get today is something familiar because it seems like something you're already trying to do, then what you can take that as a reinforcement that the plan of action you have in place is a solid plan, has great background. You just may need a little extra time to get it working. Maybe I can help you get something off the ground with that. Stop by my website, 10minutelifecoach.com, and see if there's something I can do to help you out on that level as well. Now, those of you who have been listening to this podcast and have followed me on social media for a while realize that I work in broadcasting. And if you follow the news, you know that broadcasting is a shrinking business. It's not dying so much, but the opportunities are shrinking, and the opportunities in my market right now are definitely shrinking, and our ability to leave the market isn't quite as up to snuff to go chase around broadcasting dreams. So I've been on the march, on the lookout for newer levels of employment, newer things to do, and things that are more online with my business side as opposed to my broadcasting side. To take the business work I'm doing to another level and work on that way, looking to expand at that level. To do that, I've been doing all sorts of things, sending out resumes, talking to different people, networking as best as possible. And I actually got hooked up with a career coach, someone who was, oddly enough, in the broadcasting industry to help me translate some broadcasting talk into regular business talk. And from there, a conversation arose on my LinkedIn program. Now, for those of you who do not know, LinkedIn is a social media platform. It is built around people and careers and essentially resumes. So it's not quite as fun as your Facebook or your Snapchat or your Instagram, but it's a way for people to network and find ways to hook up with other people in other industries via their professional networks. My new coach was not in my initial career circle, not in my network, because she is on the other coast. She's on the West Coast, so I have no way of actually meeting her. And the company she works for is an actual rival company of mine, so I have no connection in there. But as soon as I got connected with her, she looked into my LinkedIn profile. Makes perfect sense. And then we had some more conversations about where I was going. And while I kept trying to explain myself in where I was moving towards something that was logistical, she kept throwing out things that were engineering. So she was looking at my profile, the way I wrote myself up on LinkedIn, and she was reading into that a way that she perceived me in my work life. And then I was basically telling her things like, well, no, I really do this, this, and this. So where was the disconnect? Well, it was pretty simple. I put up a profile on LinkedIn that was based off a resume that I wrote that was based on my broadcasting experience and my day-to-day broadcasting work. And from there, doing day-to-day work as opposed to doing overarching planning work, it looks like I'm more of an engineer. It's got a lot of technical things on there, a lot of computer things that are being worked on, a lot of just daily moving parts type stuff, which is great if you want to be in broadcasting and you have to do all the jobs that a broadcaster does, but not so great if you're moving up towards business supervisory type roles, which I think I'm trying to move on to. So this was a prime example of me not being prepared for what I'm shooting for. My LinkedIn profile essentially being a carbon copy of my resume. So my resume is not being as productive as it can because it's telling a story that is not the story I want to tell. It's a true story. It's things I've done. It's who I am. But it's not exactly the who I am I want to show to other people. Not that that person's a bad guy. He's just not the guy that I'm trying to sell. I'm not trying to sell my basketball skills to someone when I'm trying to go out and do their lawns. If I'm a lawn service guy that likes to play basketball, basketball is irrelevant. It's my ability to get out and take care of a person's lawn. Here, I'm trying to do more business stuff, more managerial stuff, more logistical and planning stuff. And what I have down are day-to-day operations and in the dirt type stuff in my profile. I'm effectively doing a bad job of advertising myself. So it's a hard time to get people to see me as I want them to see me if I'm not advertising myself as that person. If I'm showing a whole different side of the person I want to be seen, they can't see the other side. Similar thing happens in the way I essentially dress every day. Because I do more engineering day-to-day stuff in studios, in closets, essentially, backed away from people, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about getting dressed up and being presentable, because I don't spend a lot of time going out to clients and going out to meet people and going out to sell stuff. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a manager of the station. I need to worry about what's going on in the radio, not going on trying to make people send us money. You get people to send us money, and I take care of that end there for the business part. Now, for a couple days, because there were some higher-ups coming through, and I wanted to get some time to talk to them about what was going on and some future things, important things that were for their benefit as advertisers and for our benefits as producers of stuff, I did what was essentially unthinkable. I dressed up for a couple days. It wasn't as hard as it seemed like it was going to be. It was mostly collared shirts and sweater vests and having my shirt tucked in as opposed to just out and waving around like it normally is. But it made a big difference in how people in the office actually viewed what I looked like. It's not like I go on the interviews looking like a slob, but when I'm in the office and working and need to feel comfortable, I have that look. And then when I put on the more professional look, which is a front to put on to impress the advertisers and show them in a good light, essentially the best face forward, I put on a different kind of look for other people to see me that normally don't see me as dressed up as I was. And trust me, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. It wasn't anything or extraordinary, I should say. I wasn't wearing a suit. I wasn't wearing a tie. I was still wearing tennis shoes all day long. I just wore the nicer ones instead of the more comfortable ones. It was just an image put forth. Now, you may have an issue right now where you're trying to win something. Maybe you're doing like I'm doing and trying to get a job. Maybe you're trying to impress that certain someone in your life, or maybe you just want to make sure your family sees that you are doing great things, great work in your personal development journey, and changes are happening. But the problem is the presentation is not living up to what's going on, and the advertisement that you're doing of what's going on just is falling on deaf ears. Make sure that you are living your life as you're advertising, or your advertising, in a sense, is the life that you're living. Make sure that what you're putting forward, with the work you're putting into, is being seen by the right people, and the work that you're trying not to focus on is not being seen. There's plenty of things that need to go on in the background that does not need to be put out in the open. That's extraordinary stuff on its own end, but it's not getting you any closer to your goals. Make sure that the resume that you put out there, if you will, is up to snuff, up to date, and showing the right things you need to be showing. Make sure that the comments you make, the words you use, the presentations you give are moving towards where you want to go and not showing a light of person who likes to be somewhere else. You should always be moving forward in life anyway. If you don't take the time to update these things, you get lost in all sorts of issues. And you find out that some skills, some jobs, some things you used to do are no longer that important. They might be cool, they might be interesting, they might be great topics of conversation, but they don't necessarily move you forward towards what you're doing. What you show to others is an advertisement to what they can perceive you are. And if you're not showing that you are into the right things, no one's going to expect you to know the right things. You're not showing that you can do the right things, no one's going to expect you to be able to do those things. It's very important as you make your journey in personal development, whether it's for truly personal development or just a business working, moving yourself up the corporate ladder, you are advertising not just the fact that you're a hard worker, but that you are working hard towards certain things, certain types of levels of achievement that will give more value to whatever. Or if you're trying to get a date, that you have the right values already possessed in you that you can do well for that other person. It's very easy to advertise the wrong things if you're not paying attention because you just kind of throw things out there. It does take a lot of mindfulness to know what it is you're pushing out there, but that's not a real problem. You should be more mindful anyway. Make sure that what you're advertising to the world, the image you're showing out there, or the work you want to show, is the work that's going to actually advance you and your goals towards where you're moving. And thank you so much for listening to the podcast this week. I am so glad that you are a part of the 10-Minute Life Coach family, a part of our community, a part of all the things we do. And I am so glad for all the folks who have reached out in the last couple of weeks asking how they can actually assist in what we have going on here. Now, if you've been listening for about a month or so, you've heard more commercials in the podcast, or actually at the beginning and the end. The service I use to host my podcast, called Spreaker, has added a ad revenue armed for regular podcasters, and I was in there on the early stages on the promotions, and now that it's essentially full blown, you're hearing a more steady, consistent level of commercials. Only 30-second spots at the beginning, at the end. They've not worked out ad injection. If they do, I won't use that for this podcast. Trust me, this one's going to be as clean as possible. But because it is popular and you guys listen to it, it is helping me generate a little bit of revenue for the podcast. We ain't getting rich anytime soon, but it's helping to pay the bills and get this thing closer to being self-funded than it was in the past. Every little bit helps on these things. Plus, as people who follow me around know, the answer to the question, why do you do 4 podcasts, is because I can't figure out how to do 5. Time and other things get in the way, and the other podcasts have their own life and own mission. But this one is one that's very dear to me and very hopefully dear to you. Now, those of you who've reached out about helping out, there are certain ways that are coming very soon, I promise. Number one is the $10 Life Coach, which we're trying to recreate, but we're having some issues making everything work out on that end. It's essentially now a community, and we're asking you for a $10 a month donation, if you will, a $10 a month, a fee for a community where we'll be essentially a group coaching together. So we will join together in forums online in various forms to just sort of self-coach each other. Plus, it allows you a way to get more of my 10-minute life coach and other stuff off the bat, if not free. Most of it will be free for a very low cost as we kick things in there. Very soon, we're going to open up some Patreon things, and we're going to do that in some fashion. I'm doing that, essentially revamping how I'm managing all of my podcasts, and we'll do a Patreon for essentially all of them, so I know which ones are being taken care of by whom. But we're going to set up a Patreon account for this podcast, and it's going to be fairly simple. Right now, there's going to be the $1 just thank you level. There'll be the $10 level, like the $10 Life Coach, which will allow you to get some of the freebies, or basically all the freebies and whatnots that we're giving with the $10 Life Coach. That may actually be how we run the program through Patreon, if that turns out to be a better way. And then there'll be a upper tier, which will allow you some extra benefits, some office hours, direct office hours that are basically paid for in the Patreon subscription. We're working on how to make all that stuff actually work, i.e. fat fingering it into the system and making sure that we set up tiers of things, and the expectations from what comes out won't disappoint you. We want to make sure that's all great. So we're going to hopefully get a 10-minute life coach form system that works, that makes me happy, that you guys will be able to use, nice and simple. We're trying to stay away from Facebook groups because it just seems a little much, but that may go that route. We're going to set up a Patreon that if you want to contribute to there, you'll get essentially everything. Plus, we're working on the extra tier there. And I'm also trying to up my game and getting a few extra direct clients. So if you want to get some client work, if you need some extra help in getting your personal professional development needs taken care of, check out the website and the offerings at 10minutelifecoach.com, and maybe we can get together and we can work together to improve ourselves, because every time I get a chance to help someone else out, it helps me out, proving me right, number one, and helps me get better at the job of helping others out. So right now, the best thing you do to help me out is to just keep listening to the podcast and share it with a few other people. Share it with like-minded people who are looking to improve their personal and professional development game and get a little better on themselves. And, of course, contact me via the website or look for other projects I have going on via my main website, jclevelandpayne.net. Subscribe to the podcast, share it, and give ratings and reviews wherever you get podcasts from. Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever it is called these days is still the granddaddy because people assume it's a granddaddy. But this podcast is actually listened to more on services like Stitcher and Spreaker, and Androids are the prevailing source of my listeners. I know that because I'll check it out. Although there's a lot of people that listen on computers. I happen to listen to podcasts on computers mostly. But wherever you get your podcast from, send them some sort of notification that you love us there so that I can see it and I know to put more emphasis there. If there's a certain app that you use, let me know that as well so I know that I'm working to optimize your experience wherever it is. It's different between Apple and Stitcher and Spreaker, and if you download it directly from Overcast, such as that. So because I've rambled a bit and went a little long right now, I'm just going to wrap it up right here. You know how we do this here, except for the intros and outros commercials that come in to help pay for what's here. It's pretty simple. No music, no other promotions, just 10 minutes of live coaching plus a little back end housekeeping, a little extra housekeeping today. Thank you so much for joining us for this journey. Be with us again next week as I present another 10 minutes of very, very solid personal development advice that hopefully you can implement just like that from the 10-Minute Life Coach.